So we lost the technology and can't go back. Got more flat earth nonsense coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense Logic and Reason. As always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. Well, flat earthers and moonland hoaxers aren't mutually exclusive. They're not the same. However, they might as well be because there's a lot of overlap. You know, when it comes down to flat earthers, they have basically invested interest in believing that the moon landing was a hoax. Because if it wasn't a hoax, then this idea that we live under a dome, you know, them taking the so-called firmament context in the Bible, the firmament scripture, the Bible out of context, then it doesn't make sense that we are living under a dome, under a firmament that they take completely out of context. Well, one of the conspiracies that they use to try to say that the moon landing was a hoax is this idea that, you know, we supposedly magically lost the technology for the space program, and we can't go back to the moon. You know, if we can't go back today with better technology, then how were they able to do it back then? Well, none of this is true. Absolutely none of it is true. So I'm going to dispel that myth in this video. First of all, let's start with we lost the technology. Okay, they believe that all of the technology that was developed for the Apollo space program, you know, the Saturn V, the orbiter, lunar module, the capsule that the astronauts came back to Earth in, they believe that all this technology is lost, but it's not. None of this technology is lost. It's all archived. If anybody wanted to look up the blueprints for the Apollo space program, they can easily do it. They can find this information. It hasn't been lost. Now, the problem, though, is that this is technology from the 1960s. So why would we want to look at that technology? It's just too old and antiquated today. I mean, it was designed with components from back then, components that most of it we don't even use anymore. Like vacuum tubes. I mean, we still use vacuum tubes today for very limited, very special case use, such as when you're dealing with like high voltage items, you know, tower transmitters, radio transmitters, stuff like that. We still use vacuum tubes, but for the most part, we don't use them in daily life. So why would you want to even use the Apollo's, any information from the Apollo space program, technology-wise? It would make more sense to just build something new, design something new from scratch with modern technology. You know what I'm saying? So if you had the Apollo space program, which you wanted to use that technology, that means we have to build up a manufacturing facility to manufacture components from 1960s that we no longer use, and then the only thing that you can do with these components is use it with that mission. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'd be like if let's say that the first cross-country trip by automobile, say, happened in 1931, and the people who did it with a vehicle from 1928. Well, if you want to drive cross-country, would you get the blueprints from that vehicle that they use and try to back engineer and recreate that vehicle from the blueprints? Or would you just use a modern vehicle? Why it makes more sense to just use a modern vehicle. Why would you try to build a vehicle from scratch unless you're just a historian or something? It would make way more sense to just use a modern vehicle that exists. But let's say that we stop building automobiles in the 1940s, because we can do that easily today because we continue to make automobiles as opposed to Apollo space program. But even if we stop making automobiles in the 1940s or 50s or whatever, it would still make more sense to design a vehicle from the ground up, from scratch, with modern technology today than try to reproduce a vehicle from 70 years ago. Again, just 80 years ago. It doesn't make any sense. This is why the Apollo space program, all of the blueprints doesn't make much sense at all, because Again, it makes sense to design something from the ground up with modern technology. If you wanted a computer, build a computer. You're not going to design build a computer from blueprints from mainframe computers of the 1960s. No, you just get a modern computer from today. So they're already saying that we're walking around with thousands of times more processing power than did the Apollo space mission have. Well, why would you go back to an old computer? Doesn't make any sense. So that's why this whole idea of we lost the blueprints is just nonsensical, and it's not true at all. So I don't know who came up with that nonsense, but it's not true. So now let's deal with the second part. We can't go back. Well, obviously Artemis 2 has proven this to be absolutely wrong. Although flat earthers are going to say it's fake, because everything to them, everything is fake, everything is CGI. Although they never provide evidence of anything that they really say. But in reality, when it comes down to the Apollo space program, we didn't just magically decide to go. Again, the government had the opportunity of having a space program after World War II. The problem is they didn't see any value in it. No, but the Russians did. The Russians moved forward with their space program. They saw value in it. And as a result, they had all of the first. They had put the first object in space, first object in orbit, first animal in space, the dog. Forgot the name of that dog. They put the first man in space, the first woman in space. They put the first satellite, Sputnik, in space. Even though Sputnik wasn't a danger to us, it was far from a spy satellite. But the government, we didn't know this. As a result of this is basically forced our hand to have a space program. Okay, and since Russia already had these first, we couldn't get these first. But what we could have a first of is putting a man on the moon. And this is why NASA was created, and this is what the Apollo space program was all about. To basically catch up to and surpass the Russians in a space race and to beat them to the moon. That we did. Now the problem though is that after Russia pretty much dropped out of it because they couldn't do it, or didn't see the value of continuing, and public interest started to wane, the government eventually stopped the Apollo space program. So this is why the Apollo space program ended, because the incentive that caused us to start it ended. Well, much the same is with the Artemis program. The reason why we just sent Artemis 2 to the moon and back, well, because of who? Well, China. China said that they were going to put a man in space, right? They have their space program. They have their own space station in orbit, and they said they wanted to put a man on the moon and have a more permanent presence on the moon or a base. So what do? Well, now we want to put a man back on the moon and create a more permanent presence on the moon. Not because of exploration and the thirst for knowledge and increasing technology. No, to be China. So the whole purpose of this Artemis 2 and the Artemis mission in general is to beat China. So once again, we never lost the technology. Again, it's archived. Anybody who wants to go find it can go find it. And it was never an issue that we couldn't go back. It was the issue, what's the incentive to go? We never had any incentive to go back. Now we do, which is why we are. Anyway, if you ever hear any one of these flat earthers say we lost the technology and we can't go back, well, now you know, and knowing it's half the battle. And as always, y'all, until next time.